Welcome back, everybody. You know, today's deep dive is going to be a little different. We're not looking at our usual articles and research. We're going to be focusing on one person's story. It's a creator who had kind of a crazy year in 2024. And we're going to look at it as like a case study of, resilience and faith in this whole digital world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a unique deep dive because we're going to have like a raw account of someone's experience in the digital space. And, it's one thing to see what happened, but we also get to look at how they processed it all.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool. Like, we're going to be basically going through a recent podcast episode this creator, we'll call him Alex, released, where he kind of breaks down his whole 2024. And it was rough. He actually described it as a battle zone.
Wow.
Which, when you hear everything, makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, from what I know, he was dealing with some online fame, and especially in the gaming community, that can be, very difficult to handle. And it sounds like he got hit with a ton of negativity and pressure, which eventually led to him losing his two gaming channels, Redemption Games and The Guru of Games.
It's crazy how we forget that, behind all these usernames and stuff, there are real people.
Totally.
And to lose something you've put so much effort into, just because of all the negativity online, it's got to be difficult.
It definitely highlights the, the darker side of being a creator in this economy, right? Like there's this constant engagement, the pressure to kind of perform, and there's just a potential for backlash, even if you're doing your best.
Right.
And we're going to kind of touch on that later, but for now, let's stick with his story. So he loses his gaming channels. What happens next?
Well, he didn't give up. He decided to try and pivot to affiliate marketing, which is something I bet a lot of people listening have thought about at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
This idea of making content and then like getting a cut of the sales.
Right.
It's pretty tempting, but for Alex, it just didn't really work out the way he was hoping it would.
Yeah, affiliate marketing is, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, which is what a lot of people think it is. You have to put in a lot of effort and strategy, and honestly, there's a certain amount of luck involved to find the right niche and products.
Yeah, totally.
So this affiliate marketing thing fails, and he's already lost his gaming channels. That's a real, hit to your confidence. How did he bounce back from that?
Well, that's when things start to get really interesting, and that's where I think faith kind of comes into play. Alex has been very open about how praying really helped him through all this.
Okay.
He was looking for some guidance and found a new purpose, which led him to start the StoryFuel podcast.
Interesting. So, hitting rock bottom kind of forced him to really think about what was important to him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about, views or subscribers anymore. He really wanted to connect with people through storytelling.
Exactly. And that's something I think, even if you're not a creator, a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a big setback to kind of push you in a direction that you ever would have considered.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example of how, going through something bad can kind of force a change.
Totally.
When everything's falling apart, we have to ask ourselves, what am I passionate about? What kind of impact do I want to make?
And for Alex, it seems like the answer was storytelling. But it wasn't just like a random thing. He really wanted to dive deep into this new path and figure out different ways he could share stories and connect with an audience.
Yeah, that's when you see his adaptability and kind of that entrepreneurial spirit come out. He didn't just settle for one platform, It seemed like he was trying out different ways to tell these stories and make money at the same time. What were those first few things like?
Well, in his podcast, he talked about wanting to make these really cool storytelling videos.
Yeah.
Like almost mini movies, and he also mentioned writing ebooks. So he's already really good at bringing people in on his podcast. So imagine what he could do with, something visual.
That's actually a pretty smart move. Digital storytelling is huge right now. People really want authentic, personal stories. It's a way to connect with people on a deeper level, which can be hard to find on the internet sometimes.
And it's not just about connecting with people. It's also figuring out how to actually make a living, doing what you love. Which brings us to how he wants to make money from all this. He mentioned Patreon and Ko-Fi. Now, some people listening might know about these, but could you break down kind of how these platforms work? Like, how are they different from, say, like a traditional publishing deal or getting a sponsorship?
Yeah, so in the past, creators would have to go through, publishers or record labels or film studios to get their work out there. But these platforms, like Patreon and Ko-Fi, they kind of get rid of all that. They let creators work directly with their fans and get financial support from them directly. So fans can become patrons and give a certain amount of money each month or make like one-time donations on Ko-Fi. And in return, creators usually offer exclusive content or behind-the-scenes stuff or other
So
benefits.
it's almost like a modern version of that old patronage system
Yeah.
where fans can directly support the people that they like.
Exactly. It gives creators more control and freedom and potentially, a better income because they're not relying on algorithms or sponsorships as much.
Alex also mentioned Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. So he's thinking about taking those ebooks and selling them directly to people.
That makes sense. He's already building this community on his podcast, so he can use that to, promote the books and potentially reach a much wider audience than he would through a traditional publisher.
But from what I got from his podcast, it doesn't seem like it's all about, the money for him. He sounded pretty genuine when he talked about wanting to kind of create a space where people could, connect over similar things and find inspiration and build a community.
I think that's super important, especially online, Even if you have millions of followers, it can still feel really lonely. That feeling of belonging, being a part of something bigger than yourself. It's powerful. And it's something it seems like Alex just kind of gets.
You can tell that he's learned a lot from what happened in 2024. It's like he's turned failure into a way to grow. He's not letting it define him, and instead he's using it to keep moving forward.
I think that's really inspiring. He's taking what he learned and using it on this new path. He even talked about boundaries and self-care. He's realizing that if he's burnt out, he can't do anything. It's a good reminder that we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, and speaking of being burnt out, it seems like his faith is a big part of how he keeps going. Like it's giving him the strength to not give up.
It's interesting how he talks about faith as something he does every day, not just what he believes. Something that helps him with uncertainty. It's about trusting that there's a way forward, even if he can't see it yet.
It sounds like he's found a way to make his faith a part of his work, which I really admire. He's not keeping it separate. It's, woven into everything he does.
And that realness is probably what connects with his audience. They're not just entertained. They're getting a look at his whole journey, his struggles, his wins, and what's important to him.
It just reminds you that people want that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that often comes from being open and sharing those things that make us, human. But let's go back to the more practical stuff. He's got these plans to make videos, write books, build a community. How's he actually going to do all that?
Well, that's where his strategy and adaptability come in. He seems to be going at it with a mix of creativity and practicality.
It seems like he's really thinking like a business owner now.
Okay.
Not just a creative, but figuring out how to make this last.
That's a big difference. A lot of creators struggle with that. They're passionate about their art, but sometimes they don't know how to, make it into an actual career.
And there isn't really a single right way to do things in this creator economy, is there?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
What might work for one person might not work for someone else. It's about, finding what you're good at, what makes you unique, your audience, and you got to keep up with all the changes online.
So we've talked about, Alex's resilience, his faith, him going from gaming to storytelling, and his ideas about how to make money off of it. But I keep thinking about this whole creator economy thing and how it's changing, how we make and use content. What do you think about all that?
It's really something. We're seeing a shift, away from those traditional companies that kind of controlled everything. Creators don't need publishers or labels or studios anymore. They can use platforms like Patreon, Ko-Fi, Amazon KDP. All those are making it easier for anyone to, connect directly with their audience and build a business.
It's almost like the Wild West out there with creators trying new things and figuring out how to make things work.
That's a good way to put it. There's a lot of freedom, but also a lot of uncertainty. This whole creator economy thing is still pretty new, and there's no instruction manual. It's a lot of trying things out, seeing what works, and, dealing with the algorithms and all that.
And let's be honest, it's not always, amazing. Like Alex talked about negativity, harassment, that pressure to keep making content. It's not always fun.
No, it's not. The internet can be, pretty rough. Creators get a lot of criticism, trolls, and they have to keep people interested. It can really affect their mental health, their relationships, their creativity.
So what advice would you give to, people who are just starting out? What are some important things to remember when you're in this Wild West of creating content?
I think the most important thing is finding what makes you unique, what you're passionate about, your story. Don't try to be like everyone else or just follow trends. Being real is what matters. People can tell when you're not. And build those genuine connections with your audience. Give them something good and be consistent. This is a a marathon, not a sprint. And don't be scared to try things, fail, and learn from it. That's how you grow.
And don't forget about community. Find your people, other creators, support each other, and learn from each other.
Totally, because it can get lonely in this creator world. So it's super important to have people around you who get it and can help you out.
So as we wrap up this look into Alex's year, I'm left with a feeling of hope and being inspired. He's shown us that you can turn what you love into something real, even when things are tough and you're not sure what's next.
His story really shows how strong people can be, the importance of faith, and how we can adapt and make something good, even when things are bad.
And it reminds us that everyone has a story that can connect with other people and make a difference.
Maybe Alex's journey can inspire you to, get creative, try new things, and find your own voice in this ever-changing digital world.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What can you learn from all this? About being resilient, having faith, and being open to new things. What's your story?
And how can you use that to make the world a better place? Until next time, keep being curious, keep learning, and never stop exploring the power of stories.